What's going on YouTube? So 2020 is going to be a big year for big SUVs with the all new GM trucks coming out soon, but also a new trim level and new updates for this 2020 Ford Expedition. Now, like always, we do want to take a moment to thank our friends at Kain Ford in Versailles, Kentucky for giving us access to this fully loaded Expedition. And if you're in the market for any new Ford, make sure you stop by their dealership or visit them via their website. So with that all said, let's go ahead and see if this Expedition has what it takes to take on the latest crop of competitors. All right, so like always, we'll go ahead and start things off here with the exterior design. And as you can see, it hasn't really changed for 2020 as you'd expect, since this is only a couple years old. However, there are several different ways you can finish the front end design. Now, if you go for the XLT or the limited trim levels, that's where you'll have kind of the plainer silver chrome grille design here. But when you go up to this platinum trim, that's where you fill in this silver mesh trim, which looks a lot fancier. Now, as far as the all-new King Ranch trim that Ford's adding for 2020, that shares most of the same styling characteristics with the platinum trim, but the grille as well as the lower fascia and trim around the vehicle, that's going to be finished in a stone gray color, which kind of looks like basically the F-150 King Ranch. Now, coming over here to your headlight design, this has a really nice looking design. The grille kind of surrounds inside of the headlight, so you have your LED turn signal, and then you have LED lights over here if you go for the King Ranch or the platinum trims. Otherwise, it's going to be a halogen headlight. And then down at the bottom here, you will also find LED fog lights if you have the LED headlights. Now, as far as the various wheel options, there are a ton, depending on the different trim levels, of course. So with your XLT, that comes standard with 18-inch alloys with several optional 20-inch alloys. The Limited comes standard with 20-inch alloys with several optional 22-inch alloys. And then when you get to the King Ranch or the Platinum, that's where you'll kick into these standard 22-inch alloys, which look very nice with the contrasting design. Then coming up here to your mirrors, they are always at least heated, though if you get the Limited and up, you will have power folding and auto dimming abilities. And then as far as the trim level specific stuff, you will have mirror caps if you go for the King Ranch or the Platinum. They're silver here and that stone gray color on that King Ranch trim level.
So here at the side of the Expedition, we do have a little bit to talk about. For those of you familiar with this vehicle, you know that it's offered in a long wheelbase form called the Max, and that's what we have here. That measures in at 222 inches long, so it's basically about as long as a school bus. And then the regular one is going to come in at 210 inches, so it's a 12-inch wheelbase stretch for that Max version. Now, walking around to the rear design itself, I've always thought this Expedition has a very classy and handsome design, and that definitely continues for 2020. So what you're going to be looking at as far as the features are concerned are LED tail lights here on the Limited and Platinum trims. On the other trim levels, it would be a halogen. And then down below, we do have special silver accenting on the Platinum. However, we do not have any exposed exhaust pipes on any of the models. Now, a lot of you might be towing a boat or something with this Expedition, so it is important to talk about the towing. It starts out at 6,600 pounds, but you can option on a heavy-duty towing package to increase that to a class-leading 9,000 pounds. Now, here at your safety systems, you're going to see a 2020 change, and that's now that Ford's Co-Pilot 360 system is now standard across all of the Expedition lineup. That means all models will include blind spot monitoring, forward emergency braking, lane keeping assist, auto high beam headlights, and standard on the King Ranch and Platinum only is the Co-Pilot 360 Assist package, and that will also throw in adaptive cruise control. Well guys, that sums up the flashy exterior of this Expedition Platinum model, so now let's go ahead and hop in the inside and see how luxurious it is.
So walking up to the 2020 Ford Expedition, you do have a smart entry system standard on every one of the trims. but you will have to go up beyond the base trim if you want to have the remote start system. Now, of course, as with most vehicles with the smart entry system, you just reach behind the handle and it will unlock. You will also find the mirrors will electrically fold outward, and so long as you have the limited trimmer up, you have the power deploying running boards. Now, taking a first glance inside the cabin, you won't notice any huge interior changes. However, there have been some updates specific to this Platinum trim, which we'll get into as we work our way through the video. Now, as far as your color and material options, on the XLT, you're looking at cloth with an optional leatherette. And then when you go for the limited or up, that's where you'll get real leather. And then as far as your color options, you have ebony or medium stone options for XLT and limited. The new King Ranch trim, that comes with the special Del Rio brown leather with the different unique stitching designs. And then the Platinum trim has ebony or this very nice looking ceramic color. Now, turning over here to your door trim, this is where you're going to find the first 2020 Platinum change. Now, you'll notice it's mostly the same door trim, so you have leather through here as well as the really nice quilted design. But what's new this year is that instead of a soft touch plastic up here like the other trim levels, we now have a really nice leather area with the color contrast stitching. You will find 3-person memory seating on the limited and up. And then checking out the seat here, all but the base trim comes with a 10-way power adjusting seat with 4-way lumbar support. And this Platinum trim does also throw in massaging abilities. And then as far as these seats, I have to say they are very aesthetically pleasing. I love the color and the quilting design down the side as well as the Platinum branding. Now, of course, with the large power deploying running boards, getting in is actually very easy. You can just grab the handle and put both feet on the running board at the same time. So like I was saying, 2020 does bring some material upgrades to the Platinum trim, which I'm very happy about. So beyond the door trim, what they also did was put the full leather dashboard across the top here. Obviously this looks and feels a lot more premium. As you go down here, you have some soft touch materials, and then along this center console here, you'll find more leather with color contrast stitching, as well as this really nice looking faux wood trim. All this definitely makes the Platinum stand out, you know, being more as the more expensive and nice product. Now, of course, to start all expeditions, you have push button start. Now, as far as your gauges here, this is kind of your typical Ford Expedition or F-150 setup here. So you have a 7-inch display in the middle and analog gauges on the outside edges. And this continues to have just a ton of information, including things regarding towing and safety systems. There is not a head-up display offered, though. Then we come back to the steering wheel itself. Ford nicely includes the leather-wrapped steering wheel, standard on all of the trim levels. These silver accents here, they're Platinum exclusive. And new for 2020, rain-sensing wipers are now standard on the limited trim and up. As far as the wheel itself, it is power adjusting on that limited trim and up. And Ford also throws in power adjusting pedals as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about storage, because that's got to be one of the most important things in an SUV of this size. So once we pull this out of the way, as you can see, this is an absolutely ridiculously large center console. You could fit your week's worth of groceries in here, honestly. And then up in front of that, you have your covered cup holders, another large storage bin with a wireless phone charger and some USB ports. One of them is a Type-C. You've got more storage along the side here, as well as some additional storage above the glove box. So as you can see, there is certainly plenty of places to stick stuff. Now, one of the reasons why Ford has been able to give you this much storage is because they've gone with an electronic shifter. This is their newest turn style shifter, so you obviously just twist to D for drive. You can press in the center to activate the manual mode and shift manually with these little buttons here, but there are no paddle shifters on the wheel. And then when we go into reverse, you will find a 360-degree camera system on the Platinum trim and King Ranch, or on the Limited if you go for the 302A package. Then for park, you just twist over to the P. Now moving on up here, we have our climate controls. Ford does include a 3-zone automatic setup, standard across all of the trim levels. One of the things I also like about it is Ford includes both heated and ventilated seats on all but the very base XLT trim, so that's a nice touch. And then on the opposite side here, you also have a 12-volt outlet. Alright, so now that brings us here to our audio systems. So on the Limited trim and up, that's where you'll get the 12-speaker Bang & Olufsen premium audio system. Obviously that's what we have, so let's go ahead and take a sample of it. Wow, I have to say, sound quality of this system is excellent, and the bass is earth-rattling. Okay, so now we are here at our Sync 3 display. Now you're probably noticing there's a little bit of a difference here with the graphics. That has been updated for 2020, but this is still Sync 3. It's not the new Sync 4 system, which hasn't quite made it out yet in the Ford lineup. Now this is still an 8-inch display. It's standard across the entire Expedition lineup. And as far as what's different, it looks like the graphics here basically have just changed colors more or less. But the performance may be a little bit improved. It seems to be a little bit snappier than I remember it being last year. Now since we're already here in the navigation system, I will go ahead and mention that this is standard on King Ranch and Platinum only, though you can option on to the Limited trim. And it's the same map that we've been seeing in Ford for the last couple of years. Regardless though, if you don't choose this, you do still have both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay abilities. Now moving on up here, we actually have another storage area, which I failed to mention earlier. You also have an auto-dimming mirror with HomeLink universal remotes that are up here in the visor. And I may be wrong about this, but I don't remember this piece being here last year, so I believe this mirror here is new. And then one of my favorite features though is the power panoramic moonroof. This is standard on the Platinum and the King Ranch, excuse me, though you can option on to all of the other trim levels if you prefer. But anyways guys, that is all in terms of the changes for the 2020 Platinum trim. So now I'll go ahead and hand it off to Mason, who will check out all the back areas.
Alright, so sitting back here in the Expedition Platinum's rear seat, first of all I have to say, if you covered up the badge, you would not know this is a Ford at all, because this rear seat is really, really nice. Now as far as the features that they do throw in on this top-end Platinum model, we do have climate controls. That is actually standard across all of the Expedition lineup. And we do also have 2-stage heated rear seats. That's also standard on all but the very base XLT trim. And then off to the side, we have 2 smart charging USB ports, a household style outlet, and down below we also have a 12-volt power outlet, as well as a little bit of storage area. Now, as far as the actual seating configurations themselves, as you can see, we do have the captain's chairs on this particular model. That is actually optional across all of the trims of the Expedition. It's a $595 option. And as far as the space is concerned, you are going to be very pleasantly surprised, because it has 43 inches of rear legroom and 40 inches of rear headroom, which does place it ahead of the current Tahoe. And as far as behind rear seating position, I can completely fully stretch out, and I have absolutely tons of space. Now to get into the third row of the Expedition, Ford has made it quite easy. All you have to do is locate this little lever up here on the top of the seat back, and it does kind of lift up and easily slide out of the way. Now, as far as the actual space is concerned in the third row, you are going to find absolutely insane measurements. You're going to have 40 inches of rear legroom and 37 inches of rear headroom in the third row. You heard me right. And do keep in mind, though, that this is the Platinum model, and the regular Expedition would have reduced figures from that. But now let's go ahead and check it out, see what it's like for an adult. So sitting back here, you know, as the measurements would suggest, I am absolutely super comfortable. As far as the leg room, this seat is slid all the way back, and I still have probably an inch or two of space, and my feet have room up underneath the seat to slide. So I'm very, very comfortable, and quite possibly more important than that is that the thigh support is absolutely excellent. In addition to that, Ford does also give you the ability to recline the third row. So to make it even more comfortable, I honestly don't see how anyone could complain. And you do have cup holders as well as vents back here. So Ford really has knocked it out of the park with this third row. Now walking up to the tailgate of the Expedition, it is hands-free power on the limited trims and higher, and you can also open this rear glass independently, which is a nice touch. So just wave your foot under the bumper to open. And once you get into the cargo area of this Expedition Max, I assure you, you will not be disappointed. This is basically like a school bus in terms of space. So behind the third row seats, you're going to find 36 cubic feet of space. If you fold the third row, that expands to 76 cubic feet. And if you fold all of the rows, you get 122 cubic feet of space, which puts it ahead of most of its rivals. Obviously, we don't have the numbers for the new Chevy Suburban, but I assume this is going to be at the higher end of its class. And as far as how Ford finishes it back here, it is also finished very nicely. Up underneath of the floor, we do have additional storage if you need it. And then off to the side, we do have a power folding third row as well as second row. So all you have to do to fold it is just push these little buttons off to the side, and it folds all of it. And just actually, there's these two buttons right here, and it will fold all of the rows just in one press, which is a really nice touch. Now here at the passenger seat, you do have a 10-way power adjusting one on this Platinum, and it is also massaging. And in front, you do have a decently sized glove box. It's actually not that large for a vehicle this big. And up top, we do have a sun visor with a light and mirror, and it does also detach and extend. Well guys, that sums up all of the rear areas of this Expedition Max. So now let's go ahead and take it out on the road and see how that 400 horsepower engine performs.
Well, this thing is fast. You know, I did expect it to be fast, but I have to say, you know, accelerating, it feels even faster than you would expect.
Yeah, and it does it in such a nonchalant manner. I don't even know. It just, you look up and you're going like 75, and it just doesn't even feel like you should be barely moving at all.
Now, as far as the actual power figures, what we're looking at is 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque for all of the trim levels except for the Platinum trim, and that's going to get the exclusive power boost. Going to bring you up to 400 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. So, I mean, from driving the one last year, does it really need more power? No, but you know, why not? If you get the Platinum, you get that nice power boost.
Yeah.
Get you closer to Navigator level.
And you didn't mention it, but this is coming from a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6. So that is a important difference between this and its GM rivals here, is that this is a V6 as opposed to the traditional V8 that most in this class have to offer. So whether you think that's a pro or a con, that's going to be up to you, but that is an important difference between those models. But you know, once you get up to speed, here we are cruising around 55 miles per hour. I mean, it's just really quite unbelievable. You know, sitting up here, this truly does feel like sitting on a couch. I'm gonna be honest. Like, this seat is extremely, extremely comfortable. And for a matter of fact, the second row seats are comfortable, and the third row, so you could have like 10 people in here, super comfortable. And it honestly feels like sitting at home on your sofa. It has an absolutely fantastic ride. And it's also very quiet in here. I know you're probably hearing a rattling GoPro up on the roof here. I don't know why it's making so much noise, but it is very quiet in this cabin, I assure you. And I'll go ahead and get out our handy dandy, decibel reader and give you a decent idea of what it's like at a cruising speed. Yeah, we're looking at it came down to about 57 decibels cruising at 55 miles an hour. You know, and another thing that I didn't really mention with the, ride is just the commanding presence that you're going to get with this Expedition. You know, really anything in this class has that commanding view. You're sitting up really tall, and you're definitely going to get that here, which I think a lot of buyers will definitely appreciate.
There's 60 just like that. Yeah, power, it feels fantastic. It really does. Besides for the sound, you would not know that this is a 6-cylinder instead of a V8. Now, part of getting up to speed has to be attributed to the 10-speed automatic transmission. Very, very responsive. It really blasts off shifts lightning fast. And I've said it before about this transmission, but, there's not any weirdness or anything. Despite having 10 speeds, it seems sure of itself. It doesn't just shift randomly and get confused, but there's always a gear ready for you since you have so many speeds to choose from, so you can be up at cruising speed, for instance, like we are now, put your foot down and immediately get that surge of power because it shifts straight down immediately. Now, the funny thing about it is that you'll end up with the new Tahoe, Yukon.
Yeah.
They'll actually have the same transmission because it was co-developed with both GM and Ford. Different tuning, of course, but it is kind of an ironic bit that you end up having two close competitors sharing the same transmission.
Well, good for them, because it is a good one, so. Now you may be curious, what the fuel economy figure is going to be for this twin-turbo V6. You might think that would give you a fuel economy benefit, but unfortunately that's not really the case here. As compared to the current GM vehicles, like the Tahoe, we don't really know about the new ones coming out, but as far as the Max 4x2, that's going to be rated at 17 city, 23 highway, 19 combined, and then the four-wheel drive version is going to be 18 combined. So, it's not worse than the GM vehicles or any of its competitive set, but it is not really better than them.
Now our auto start stop system just engaged. Very, very smooth restart. Definitely very good for a mainstream brand. I mean, of course, this does cost $80-something thousand, but still extremely smooth on the restart there. You have the defeat button as well right there if you don't like that.
I mean, it is a good thing that this auto start stop is smooth because it does engage a lot. You know, if you just leave it on, you know, it'll even try and engage, you know, when you're like parking and stuff like that, which could possibly be annoying. So it is good that they do have the off button, and also that it is very smooth if it doesn't bother you.
Really, the last thing I want to mention is just kind of the maneuverability of this, because it is a behemoth. And you know, honestly, to me, by feel at least, now of course I can't speak for the new generation, but compared to the current GM triplets, this feels significantly more maneuverable. Something about it just makes it feel a little bit smaller, a little bit more responsive, a little less ponderous. But of course, ultimately, at the end of the day, this is gigantic, so you're gonna have to take wide turns, and you know, there's still plenty of body roll as you move around corners and stuff like that. But overall, even though you have a Ford emblem on the front, really what you're looking at the end of the day is pretty much a luxury SUV for all intents and purposes. You know, and I guess that's the way that people that buy these approach it, you know, is that you're getting a luxury SUV experience in pretty much every way.
Alrighty, and now let's go ahead and talk about the pricing. So for the prices I'm about to mention, that is for the two-wheel drive configuration, so keep in mind four-wheel drive is going to be an additional charge. So and also these are for the Max too, so keep that in mind. So for the Max XLT, that's going to start at $55,835, the Limited $66,375, the new King Ranch trim level $75,590, and then finally you have this one, which is the Max Platinum. That's going to be $76,965. Now four-wheel drive adds $3,000 to that, and that's about a $1,000 price increase over last year. Now we do have a few options on top of that. So we have the heavy-duty trailering package for $1,570, as well as the optional second row captain's chairs. And then when you add in the destination charge of $1,395, this particular model as equipped comes in at $83,670, which it kind of blows my mind that cars in this class cost, you know, well over $80,000 at this price point. But I have to say, you know, this is still very class competitive with what this class is going at now, and you are getting a lot for your money here. So this is truly an option. You know, if you want to go for a BMW X7 or this, you really can go head to head with that in terms of price too. Well guys, we've enjoyed watching this in-depth look at the $85,000 2020 Ford Expedition Max Platinum. If you've made it this far, that hopefully means you enjoyed the video, so be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.